The notification sound had become the soundtrack of the Morrison family's life. In their sprawling suburban home in Denver, four people lived under the same roof but existed in completely separate digital worlds. Sarah Morrison, 42, sat at the kitchen island, her laptop open to 3 different social media management dashboards while simultaneously responding to client emails on her phone. As a successful digital marketing consultant, she prided herself on being always connected. Her Instagram account @SarahLivesDigital boasted 50,000 followers who hung on her every post about optimizing your online presence. "Mom, can you Venmo me $20 for lunch?" called 16-year-old Jake from the living room, not bothering to look up from his gaming setup. 3 monitors displayed different aspects of the online battle royale he was currently dominating, while his headset crackled with the voices of teammates from around the world. "Just ask your father," Sarah replied, not lifting her eyes from her screen where she was crafting the perfect caption for a client's product launch. David Morrison, 45, was in his home office on his 3rd Zoom call of the day. As a software architect for a tech startup, he spent his days building the very systems that kept families like his glued to their devices. Through his glass office door he could see his family, but they might as well have been on different planets. 14-year-old Emma was sprawled on her bed upstairs, simultaneously watching TikTok videos, texting 3 different group chats, and half-heartedly attending her online algebra class. Her teacher's voice was just background noise to the more compelling drama unfolding in her social feeds. The only analog element in their digital fortress was the landline phone that nobody ever answered. Until it rang that Tuesday morning with news that would change everything. "Sarah? This is Dr. Martinez from Denver General Hospital." The voice was calm but serious. "Your father has been brought in. He's had a stroke." The words hit Sarah like a physical blow. She hadn't spoken to her father, Frank, in 3 months. Their last conversation had ended in an argument about her unhealthy obsession with those damn screens, as he put it. At 78, Frank lived alone on his 40-acre farm 2 hours outside the city, stubbornly refusing to get internet or even a cell phone. Will he be okay? Sarah's voice cracked. "He's stable, but the stroke has affected his speech and mobility. He'll need extensive care and rehabilitation. Do you have plans for his recovery?" Sarah looked around at her family, each absorbed in their glowing rectangles, oblivious to the crisis unfolding. We'll figure something out." At the hospital, Frank looked smaller than Sarah remembered, his weathered hands still and his usually sharp eyes clouded with confusion. When he saw his family gathered around his bed, he managed a weak smile. "Too many machines?" he whispered, gesturing weakly at the monitors surrounding him. The doctor pulled Sarah aside. "He'll need constant supervision for at least 6 weeks, maybe longer. The speech therapy, physical therapy, it's going to be intensive. And honestly, he's made it very clear he doesn't want to stay in any kind of facility." "But I can't just drop everything," Sarah protested. "I have clients, deadlines, a business to run. The kids have school activities." "Mom," Emma interrupted, having overheard. "Can't we just hire someone to take care of Grandpa?" Frank's eyes flashed with something like his old fire. "No strangers," he managed to say clearly. That evening, the family held an emergency meeting, their first real conversation in months that wasn't conducted through screens. "Look, I know it's not ideal," Sarah began, "but Dad needs us. And honestly, maybe we could all use a break from this." She gestured around at their various devices. "A break from what?" Jake asked, genuinely confused. "You mean like a vacation?" "Not exactly. Grandpa's farm doesn't have internet or cell service. We'd basically be offline." The silence that followed was deafening. "For how long?" Emma's voice was small. 6 weeks. Maybe 8. "That's impossible," David said immediately. "I can't work without internet. I'd lose my job. And I'd lose all my followers," Sarah added, then stopped herself. "Listen to us. Listen to what we're saying." Jake laughed nervously. "You're not seriously considering this, are you? I mean, what would we even do out there?" Frank, who had been discharged into their care that afternoon, spoke up from his wheelchair in the corner. His words were slow but determined. "You'd live." The next morning, Sarah made a decision that surprised even herself. She called her assistant. "Jennifer, I need you to handle everything for the next 2 months." "Yes, everything. Tell clients I'm taking a family sabbatical." "Hey, what?" Jennifer's voice was incredulous. "A sabbatical. From digital life. We're going off-grid." "Sarah, are you having some kind of breakdown? You haven't been offline for more than 2 hours since I've known you. Maybe that was exactly the problem." 3 days later, the Morrison family loaded their SUV with an odd assortment of items. Frank's medical supplies, enough clothes for 2 months, board games that hadn't been touched in years, and a collection of books that had been gathering dust. Notably absent were gaming consoles, tablets, and laptops. "This is insane," Jake muttered, clutching his phone like a lifeline. "What if there's an emergency?" "There's a landline at the farm," Sarah said, though she wasn't sure she remembered the number. "What if my friends need to reach me?" "They'll survive," David said, though he was secretly wondering the same thing about his work colleagues. As they drove away from their connected suburban life toward Frank's isolated farm, none of them could have predicted that they were about to embark on the most important journey of their lives. Not to a place, but back to each other. The last cell tower disappeared from their phone signals about 20 miles from Frank's property. One by one, their devices showed no service, and for the first time in years, the Morrison family was truly, completely disconnected. Frank, despite his condition, smiled from the passenger seat. "Now," he said slowly, "we begin." The first thing that hit them was the silence. Not the absence of sound. Frank's farm was alive with noises the Morrison family had forgotten existed. Birds called from the oak trees, wind rustled through the cornfields, and somewhere in the distance, a rooster announced the morning. But it was the absence of electronic noise that felt deafening. No notification chimes, no buzzing phones, no humming Wi-Fi routers. "This is like sensory deprivation," Emma whispered on their first morning, staring at her phone's blank screen for the 100th time. She kept reflexively checking it, her thumb moving to swipe open apps that couldn't load. Jake was pacing the farmhouse's front porch like a caged animal. How did people even communicate before the internet? This is literally prehistoric. "They talked," Frank said from his rocking chair, where Sarah had positioned him to watch the sunrise. His speech was getting clearer each day. Face to face. Imagine that. The farmhouse itself was a time capsule. Built in 1952, it had been Frank's childhood home, inherited from his parents and lovingly maintained but never modernized. The kitchen had a gas stove and a refrigerator that hummed contentedly but had no ice maker or digital display. The living room featured a stone fireplace, built-in bookshelves filled with actual books, and furniture that invited conversation rather than individual screen time. "Where's the TV?" David asked, genuinely puzzled. "Basement," Frank replied. "Haven't turned it on in 5 years." Sarah found herself wandering the house like a tourist in her own past. She remembered visiting here as a child before smartphones existed, when a trip to Grandpa's farm meant exploring the barn, feeding chickens, and listening to stories on the front porch. When had she stopped coming? When had life become too busy for this? The first few days were brutal. Jake developed what he dramatically called gaming withdrawal, complete with headaches and irritability. Emma kept reaching for her phone to document moments, the sunrise, a butterfly, her grandfather's smile, only to remember she couldn't share them with anyone. David tried to work on his laptop until the battery died, then sat staring at the blank screen as if willing it to resurrect itself. "I should be in meetings," he muttered. "There are deadlines, projects." "The world won't end," Sarah said, though she was fighting her own urges to check email, update social media, respond to the dozens of notifications that were probably piling up in the digital ether. "How do you know?" David shot back. "We're completely cut off. Anything could be happening." Frank, despite his physical limitations, became their guide to a different way of being. On the third day, he asked Jake to help him to the barn. "What's in there?" Jake asked reluctantly. "Your grandmother's piano," Frank said. "Hasn't been played since she died." The barn was a revelation. Beyond the expected farm equipment and hay bales, it housed a workshop, an art studio, and in the corner, a beautiful upright piano covered with a dusty sheet. "Grandma played?" Jake asked, running his fingers over the keys. A few notes rang out, slightly out of tune but still musical. "Every evening," Frank said, his eyes distant. "She said music was the original social network. Brought people together." That evening, Jake surprised everyone by sitting down at the piano. His fingers, so accustomed to gaming controllers, found their way around the keys. He'd had lessons as a child before video games took over his attention. Slowly, haltingly, he began to play chopsticks, then progressed to half-remembered pieces from his lesson books. "I forgot you could do that," Sarah said softly. "So did I," Jake admitted. Emma discovered the art studio the next day. Canvases, paints, brushes, all waiting as if Frank's late wife had just stepped out for a moment. "Grandpa, can I?" "That's what it's there for," Frank said. Soon Emma was painting. actually painting with real brushes and real paint that couldn't be undone with a simple undo command. Her first attempts were clumsy, but there was something satisfying about the physical act of creation that no digital art app had ever provided. David found himself drawn to Frank's workshop, where hand tools hung in precise order on pegboard walls. "I used to build things," he told his father-in-law, "before everything became virtual." "Tools are still here," Frank said simply. The breakthrough came on day 7. Sarah woke before dawn, her internal clock still programmed for early morning email checks. Instead of lying in bed fighting the urge to reach for her phone, she got up and walked outside. The farm at sunrise was breathtaking. Mist rose from the fields, the sky painted itself in shades of pink and gold, and the air smelled of earth and growing things. For the first time in years, Sarah was present in a moment without thinking about how to photograph it, caption it, or share it. She found Frank already awake in his chair on the porch. "Couldn't sleep?" she asked. "Don't need as much anymore," he said. One of the few benefits of getting old. More time to watch the world wake up. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the sun climb higher. "I'm sorry, Dad," Sarah said finally, "for not visiting. For being so absent." Frank nodded slowly. "You were busy living your other life. The one in the machine. I thought I was building something important. A career, a brand, a presence." "What were you building it on?" Sarah considered this. "Followers, I guess. Engagement. Metrics. And what happens when the machine turns off?" The question hung in the morning air. Sarah realized she didn't know who she was without her digital identity. For years, she'd measured her worth in likes, shares, and comments from strangers. But sitting here with her father, watching the sun rise over land that had been in their family for generations, those metrics seemed suddenly meaningless. "I don't know," she admitted. "Then maybe," Frank said gently, "it's time to find out." That morning, something shifted in the Morrison family. Instead of fighting the disconnection, they began to embrace it. Jake spent hours at the piano, rediscovering a passion he'd abandoned. Emma filled canvas after canvas with paintings of farm life, her artistic eye developing without the instant gratification of digital filters. David threw himself into repairing a chicken coop, his hands remembering skills he'd thought were lost. And Sarah began helping Frank with his physical therapy, the two of them talking, really talking, for the first time in years. But the real transformation was just beginning. By the 3rd week, the Morrison family had stopped checking their dead phones entirely. The devices sat in a drawer in the kitchen, as forgotten as yesterday's newspaper. Jake had progressed from chopsticks to playing complex pieces by memory, his fingers flying over the keys with increasing confidence. Music filled the farmhouse in the evenings, replacing the electronic soundtrack that had dominated their lives for so long. "I forgot how much I loved this," he said one evening after finishing a particularly beautiful rendition of Clair de Lune. "Why did I stop?" "Because other things seemed more important," Sarah said, but she was really talking to herself. Emma had transformed the Barnes art studio into her personal gallery. Paintings covered every available surface: landscapes of the farm, portraits of Frank, abstract expressions of emotions she was just learning to identify without emoji. Her latest project was a mural on the barn wall depicting the family's journey from their screen-filled life to this moment of connection. "I want to apply to art school," she announced one day. "Real art school. Not digital design." David had become the farm's unofficial handyman, fixing everything from loose fence posts to the ancient tractor. His hands, soft from years of keyboard work, had developed calluses and a new kind of confidence. "I forgot I could actually build things," he told Sarah as they watched him repair the front porch steps. "Real things that exist in the world." But the most profound changes were happening in their relationships with each other. Meals became events. Without phones to distract them, the family actually talked during dinner. They shared stories, debated ideas, and laughed together. Frank regaled them with tales of his childhood on the farm, his service in Vietnam, and his courtship of their grandmother. "We used to write letters," he told them one evening. "Real letters with pens and paper. Took days to reach each other, so every word mattered." "That sounds so slow," Emma said, but not dismissively. She was genuinely curious. "Slow isn't always bad," Frank replied. "Some things are worth taking time with." Sarah had started keeping a journal, not a blog or social media posts, but actual handwritten thoughts in a leather-bound book she'd found in Frank's study. Writing by hand felt different from typing. More deliberate. More real. Week 3, she wrote. "I realized today that I haven't thought about my follower count in days. For the first time in years, I'm living moments instead of curating them. The family established new rituals. Morning coffee on the porch with Frank, watching the sunrise. Afternoon walks through the fields, identifying birds and plants. Evening storytelling sessions where each person shared something they'd learned or experienced that day. Remember when we used to do family game night? David asked one rainy evening. Before everyone had their own screen, Sarah replied. They found a closet full of board games and puzzles, relics from Sarah's childhood visits. That night, they played Monopoly until midnight, arguing good-naturedly about property trades and laughing until their sides hurt. This is more fun than any video game, Jake admitted, and meant it. Frank's recovery was accelerating beyond everyone's expectations. The doctors had said 6 to 8 weeks, but by week 4 his speech was nearly normal and his mobility was improving daily. Sarah suspected that having his family around, truly present and engaged, was the best medicine he could have received. You know, Frank said one morning as Sarah helped him with his exercises, I had that stroke for a reason. Dad, don't say that. It was just bad luck, genetics? Maybe. Or maybe it was the only way to get my family back. Sarah paused in her counting of his arm lifts. What do you mean? When's the last time we all sat together without a screen between us? When's the last time Jake played music, or Emma painted, or David built something with his hands? When's the last time you and I just talked? Sarah couldn't remember. Sometimes, Frank continued, life has to break us down before we can build ourselves back up the right way. That afternoon, Sarah made a decision that would have been unthinkable a month earlier. She walked to the old landline phone in the kitchen and called her assistant. Jennifer? It's Sarah. Oh my God, Sarah. Where have you been? Your accounts have been going crazy. People are asking if you're okay, if you've been kidnapped, if you're having a breakdown. I'm fine. Better than fine, actually. How are things with the clients? Well, that's the thing. I've been handling everything and it's going really well. The Johnson campaign launched perfectly, the Peterson rebrand is ahead of schedule, and I've picked up 3 new clients who specifically asked for the Sarah Morrison approach to digital marketing. Sarah felt a strange mix of pride and irrelevance. So you don't need me? I didn't say that. But Sarah, I think I've learned enough to handle things for a while longer. If you want to extend your, whatever this is. After hanging up, Sarah sat in the quiet kitchen, processing this information. Her business was thriving without her constant attention. Her clients were happy. Her assistant was capable and confident. What did that say about the frantic pace she'd been maintaining for years? That evening, the family gathered on the porch for their usual sunset ritual. Frank was strong enough now to walk there on his own, though he still moved carefully. I have something to tell you all, Sarah said. I called work today. The family tensed, expecting bad news. Everything's fine. Better than fine. Jennifer has everything under control. So we can go home? Emma asked, and Sarah was surprised to hear disappointment in her daughter's voice. We could, Sarah said slowly. Or we could stay a little longer. How much longer? David asked. Sarah looked around at her family, really looked at them. Jake's hands were stained with piano polish from cleaning the keys. Emma had paint under her fingernails and a smudge of blue on her cheek. David's shirt was dirty from working on the tractor, and he looked more relaxed than she'd seen him in years. Frank was sitting up straight, his eyes bright and alert. I don't know, she said honestly. How long does it take to remember how to live? That night they made a family decision. They would stay through the summer. David negotiated a remote work arrangement with his company. He'd drive to town once a week to use the library's internet for essential communications. Sarah would continue her sabbatical, trusting Jennifer to manage the business. The kids would do their summer reading and prepare for the next school year, but without the pressure of constant connectivity. Are we crazy? Sarah asked David as they lay in bed that night, listening to the sounds of the farm settling into darkness. Probably, David said. But it's the best kind of crazy. Outside their window, an owl called to its mate, and somewhere in the distance, Jake was playing a soft melody on the piano. For the first time in years, the Morrison family was living in harmony, not with their devices, but with each other and the natural rhythm of the world around them. Summer on the farm passed like a dream. The Morrison family had not only adapted to their disconnected life, they had thrived in it. Jake had become the farm's musician, playing evening concerts for his family. He'd also discovered a talent for mechanical work, helping David restore the old tractor. I want to study music therapy, he announced one evening. Help people heal through music like Grandpa is healing. Emma's artistic abilities had blossomed beyond expectations. Her paintings adorned the farmhouse walls, and she'd started teaching art to children at the local community center. "I don't need Instagram to share my art," she said. "I can share it with real people right here." David had found peace he hadn't known he was missing. His weekly trips to town for work had become a chore rather than a necessity. "Maybe constant connectivity isn't the same as being indispensable," he told Sarah. Frank's transformation amazed everyone most. The man who had suffered a stroke months earlier was now stronger and more vibrant than he'd been in years. "Healing isn't just about the body," he told Sarah. "It's about the spirit. And my spirit has been hungry for my family for a long time." As August approached, reality intruded. School would start soon. David's company was pressuring him to return. Sarah's clients were asking when she'd be back. "We have to make a decision," Sarah said during their evening family meeting. "We can't stay here forever." "Why not?" Emma asked. "Really, why not?" "Because we have responsibilities," David said, but his voice lacked conviction. "To who?" Jake asked. "To jobs that don't really need us? To people who only know us through screens?" Frank listened to his family debate, then spoke quietly. "Let me tell you about your grandmother. When we got married, everyone expected us to move to the city. Better jobs, more opportunities. But we chose to stay here, living simply. People thought we were crazy." He paused, eyes distant with memory. "But we had something here we couldn't get anywhere else. We had time. Time to know each other deeply. Time to be present for the small moments that make up a life." Sarah felt tears prick her eyes. "I'm not saying you should give up everything," Frank continued. "But maybe you could choose a different kind of life." That night, Sarah walked to the barn where moonlight streamed through windows onto Emma's paintings and Jake's piano. This was what they had built together. Not followers or metrics, but real things created with their hands and hearts. The next morning, she called an emergency family meeting. What if we didn't have to choose between our old life and this one? What if we could find a middle way? Over the next hour, they crafted a plan that seemed impossible but felt absolutely right. David would negotiate permanent remote work. Sarah would restructure her business to focus on fewer clients but deeper relationships. The kids would attend the local school. And they would move to the farm. "Are you serious?" Emma asked, eyes wide. "Dead serious," Sarah replied. "Grandpa needs family nearby. We need what this place gives us. And the world needs people who remember how to live without being constantly plugged in." Frank's eyes filled with tears. "You'd really do that?" "We're not giving anything up," David said. "We're trading it for something better." 6 months later, they were settled into their new life. The farmhouse had been expanded with Sarah's office and a proper studio for Emma. Technology had become a tool rather than a master. They had designated tech-free times and spaces. "Do you ever miss it?" Sarah asked David one evening as they watched their children play outside. "The old life. I miss the illusion of importance," he said. "But I don't miss the anxiety, the constant pressure." Sarah nodded. "I miss the validation sometimes. But now I have something better, attention that matters. Love that's real, not performed." That night, Frank made an announcement during their evening gathering. "When I had my stroke, I thought I was losing everything. But instead, I gained what I thought was gone forever. I got my family back." He looked at each of them. "You taught an old man that it's never too late to choose what really matters. And you learned that being connected isn't about networks. It's about how deeply you connect with the people right in front of you." As Sarah listened to her family share their day, she realized they had found something no digital connectivity could provide. They had found their way home to each other. 1 year later, the Morrison farm had become a family retreat center where people could disconnect from technology and reconnect with each other. Frank served as the center's guide, teaching visitors that the best network was formed by people in the same room, looking into each other's eyes. Jake studied music therapy and returned to help families heal through music. Emma's art filled the retreat center, and she was accepted to art school. David's company adopted his remote work model for all employees. Sarah learned that true influence wasn't measured in followers, but in depth of impact on people who mattered most. Every evening, as her family gathered to watch the sunset and share their day, she knew she had built something far more valuable than any digital empire. Her final journal entry read, "The best connection doesn't require Wi-Fi. It just requires presence, patience, and the courage to put down our devices and pick up our lives."